Welcome to the section of the DevRelate Developer Relations Professional Certification course in which we will look at the developer himself, who he is and what makes him tick. Here, you'll get the essential knowledge that you need to understand developers. If you're going to run a successful developer program, you need to know who that developer is. This will provide the foundation for supplying developers' needs as you create or enhance your program. Developers often wear several hats, including management and sometimes business hats. Developer titles vary from company to company and even from one region to another. Sometimes they'll be called developers, but sometimes they're programmers or engineers. There are subtle differences in titles, such as the difference between software architects, CTOs, project leads, and development managers that actually reflect differences in job functions. Developers' level of authority ranges from sole decider to those who merely influence the ultimate decision makers. When marketing to developers, it's important to look for the person who determines the best tools and technologies available for a particular need and then influences or authorizes that purchase. The decision makers' titles will vary, and it's important not to limit the possible audience strictly by title. In addition, titles and functions are not always synonymous. In smaller organizations, the chief architect, the project manager, and the software engineer may all be the same person. But in larger companies or larger teams, unique individuals likely fulfill each development job. In order to effectively market to this group, it's important to know how developers refer to themselves. Developers can fill different functions at any company. A developer at a software company might write software that is sold as his company's product, or he might write software for internal use. This chart shows how developers can be segmented by who they write applications for. It reflects the type of development the developer is doing and not necessarily the business his company is in. Of course, all developers need tools and programs regardless of whether they write programs for external distribution or internal use. But knowing which developer segments will naturally adopt your technology and for what purpose is invaluable to knowing your developers. The size of a company where a developer works affects not only the budget for tools and the types of tools developers in the company will need, but also the purchasing process. Developers in small companies or those working for themselves are not as likely to spend large amounts on tools or ever buy tools designed for large teams, but they are more likely to have purchasing authority for the number and types of tools they use or the programs they join. In most cases, company size and the number of years in business are closely aligned, though this is not true for individual programmers working as contractors or freelancing. Contractors and consultants can sell their services for years and still have only one or two people in their company. However, most companies grow until they hit their peak size and then remain that way for years. There is no most likely company size or years in business for developers. With the exception of early startups, the distribution is very even. Stereotypes, like most generalities, are almost always false. However, just like generalities, they are usually based on some body of evidence that supports the stereotype. Such is the way with gender amongst software developers. Sure, there are some female developers, and some are quite vocal, but the field, as long as there's been one, has been heavily dominated by men. Why are most software developers men? It may have to do with a long-standing cultural bias, or it may be more fundamental. In any case, we don't have to answer that, and you won't need to answer why to make your program shine. It's enough to know that this is the case, and that this is something that should be taken into account when designing messaging, ad campaigns, or other marketing activities that may feature pictures of developers or actions developers are taking.